Yo, Colonel, man, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, how you doing? Good afternoon.
I'm all right, brother. What's happening?
Just kind of waking up. I'm like a two or three. I drink two or three cups of coffee every morning, so that's my routine, man.
Is that right?
It's
Yeah, I
a
don't, I don't really require a lot of coffee nowadays, man.
yeah,
Like I slow down a little bit. Yeah.
very nice.
Where's that
Well,
white guy at?
sorry.
Where's that white guy at?
Oh, Daddy D. I was just gonna say, man, I have bad news about Daddy D. He had a kind of an emergency, and he won't be able to join right now, but he did say he's good for later in the week
Oh, okay. All right.
for that
Okay.
meeting down there for that meeting in the U District, man.
Okay. All right. That'll work.
Yep.
So what do you guys got going? You doing a series or something?
I'll tell you why this happened. Yeah, it's all because of Captain Love. And Captain Love has kind of a rocky up and down things going on over there in New York, but he always has a good attitude. And he told me one day, he said, Novocaine, let's do I want to tell the story of KOC. And then that turned into the story of Freeze MCs. And then that turned into the story of creative choice, as you know.
Right.
And so we started out with the SOS crew. And then I said, man, we got to talk to Colonel G because you have a whole story, you have a whole perspective where you came into the game kind of knowing Sir Wes uh, from Silver Chain Gang, you know. So
Yeah.
do you want to just break some of that down, man? Like, how did you first get down with being an MC? What was your origins of being an MC?
Well, I started out in the basement, South End, in the 80s. Or, well, actually, I started really rhyming 79 when Sugar Hill came out. I think all MCs was carrying Rapper's Delight around with them, in 79 when it came out. And that was really the birth of all MCs in Seattle, as far as I know of. And then, just started doing stuff individually at first in the South End. That's when 3D and Southside Crew were out there. And, it was a lot of boppers, a lot big bopping game going on with James Croon, the Emerald Street Boys were out.
I never
And
asked
then,
you that. I never asked you that. How was your bopping game? Did you do a little bopping or did you kind of stay away from that?
well, no, I think we all, we've seen Emerald Street get down, man. I think every crew had to have some kind of dancing in there, but nobody busted it out individually like those guys, right?
Yep.
But I think as a hip hop, as being part of hip hop like it was, um, you know, we all knew how to do a little something, but the Emerald Street Boys hands down had probably one of the best in James Croon. Captain Crunch was probably the best bopper in Seattle, right? And so anyway, yeah, I hooked up with Sir West, man. I used to see him come up to Roosevelt, because the thing was that a lot of MCs would cross high schools, right? They would show up at different high schools, right? So since Sugar Bear, the founder of Emerald Street Boys, went to Roosevelt, and I went to Roosevelt, and we were good friends. We actually did a speech together at the Martin Luther King Assembly, where we split the "I Have a Dream" speech. That's when we were like, I think we might have been 16 or going on 17 or something like that, right?
Okay.
And by then, my voice had changed over to full MC, right? You never know if he was going to have a voice or not, but fortunately for me, it developed into a really authentic broadcasting sounding really, really pure, right? And so that became my trademark as far as hip hop goes, is, the way I sounded was a combination of a few of the best in Seattle. So kind of unique. But anyway, so I knew Sir Wes from popping up at Roosevelt, and I was going to a trade school called Seattle OIC, man, in the Central District off Jackson to learn computers. Back then, it was the big, standalone IBM card feed machines. The beginning of, I think it was Macintosh was out or something like that. Very, very birth of Windows and all that.
Wow.
And so I saw him again there, and so we befriended each other. And of course, I know he rapped for Silver Chain, and so he kind of took me under his wing, man, and kind of brought me into the fold of, you know, uh, just being an MC in Seattle and just really, teaching me the pros and cons of, how to present myself. And it was shortly after then that one of the members of Silver Chain, the Duke of Earl, he was the one that helped me come up with the name Colonel G. I remember I was on the red phone in the South End and we were kicking over names. I said, man, I need something with some kind of a title, rank or something like that, right?
Yep. Yep.
And Colonel G came up and we said, that's it. And so that's how I got the name back then. I think that was 84, 85 or something like that. And then, so I basically got immersed into the new version of the Silver Chain Gang, which they had added a guy from Bremerton called Cool D. And so I became a member of that expanded Silver Chain Gang. We never performed, but we did all the things that we hung out together, wrote together, did photo shoots, and had planned to perform at the Black Festival, but we didn't end up doing it. And so it was Sir Wes who introduced me to Frostmaster Chill because he knew that Frostmaster was trying to form a group called Frostmaster Chill and the Freeze MCs. And at that time, he didn't have any MCs. He was just kind of auditioning MCs. And so I was, he set us to go over to Chill's house in the CD there. I think it was on 19th and Union or something like that. He had a basement where all the MCs in Seattle used to slide through there and do stuff and everything. A real hotbed for underground MCs, right? And so I went over there and did my thing, and he picked me up. And then shortly after that, I understood that he had did some work with Mellow Mike prior to my introduction into the. By that time, Mike was pretty much a solo rapper, and he had won the 1982 rap out at the Empire Plaza. He was titled basically the Rap King of Seattle in '82.
Wow.
But by that time, him and Mike had stopped working together a little bit, so we formed them. And then I had heard of the KOC around Seattle. I know they were a big group. Cap Love. Well, by the time I met Daddy D came over there to Chill's basement, and I remember hearing him rap for the first time. He had these long ass raps, man. I was like, man, he was practically the only white dude in Seattle that was rapping. He was really quite good, and so we took a liking to each other and decided to form the Freeze MCs. It was just us two. Later, we would add a couple females, one Dangerous D, and then Luscious Lee, two females where we perform a little bit here and there. And then so, but it was really in that basement that I kind of developed a mix between, I don't know, the old school hip hop sounds and the Kango Kid UTFO, a little faster, trickier style. And so, I developed a lot during those years, and it was with him that we started really just being exposed to the local scene, started doing performances like the Black Festival and things like that. Really organized because one of the ways we were organized is that we didn't mind putting money into our projects.
Hmm.
We didn't mind spending, $50 an hour at the recording studio just to see what we would sound like on wax, right? And that's what we did. And so We had performed about a year and a half or so, and then by that time, so I had really kind of blended from Silver Chain's expansion group over to the Freeze MCs full time, and we just set out on a mission, by any means necessary to try to get on wax, And Mix-a-Lot was hot at the time. He was doing a lot of K-Fox stuff. I mean, he was just came out with square dance rap and things like that.
Yep.
And a lot of his underground tapes were still playing. Seven Rainier, Bremolo, those types of things. And um, I had knew Mix from high school actually. Um, when I was a freshman, he was a senior, and so I used to see him walking around in the halls and stuff. So I've known Mix a lot since probably 83 or something like that.
Wow.
84 or something like that. I remember I had a salesman job at Radio Shack in the South End, where he had lived around the Rainier Beach area. And I remember him coming into the Radio Shack one time, and him, we're talking about doing some stuff, because I rapped and stuff. And, he was always trying to get me to, come in and work with him and stuff. And so I eventually was able to go over there one time, and we actually recorded a really long rap where he did the scratching and produced the music for it.
Huh.
I'm not sure whatever happened to that, but I think it was called "It's Time to Break" or something like that. But yeah, so it was a good time. It was a lot of stuff going on. I think Daddy D at the time had just broken from the KOC, or he was still he never really broke from him. They were always good friends, because there was a lot of them. Master T, Easy Shot, Sir Love, Cap Love, and yeah, it was they were known for having a lot of people in their group. You know what I mean? It was an organization, so they had all the key elements, to battle anytime. And so I remember, the thing about me and Daddy D is that we weren't afraid to challenge, the best in the city, and notably so there was we battled the Emerald Street Boys twice. Once was what we call our turf, which was Club Broadway, and based on who you ask, they say that we had the better performance there. And then once on their turf, which was in Renton at a club called Encore, where
Mm.
Sugar Bear DJ'd at, right? And they got the best of us then. And so, I always think about, the brashness that we had, and it was always D going up to him and say, we want to battle you guys. We didn't have any we didn't care how good they were, man. It was just this is just for historical purposes.
Speaking of that, man, watch this. Take us back to what was hip hop was all about personal style. I mean, like people had their belt buckle with their name on it. People had the hat or the monogram jackets and stuff. Take me back to the style. What were you going
Uh,
for in your look? What would you be buying?
oh
What would you be
shit! For
wearing?
me, for me, it was easy, man. Since I was the colonel, I'd go to Goodwill and pick up all the old military jackets. I didn't give a fuck what rank was on them. I
Of
go get
course.
the Air Force uh, captain's jackets,
Of
the
course. Yeah, of
the
course.
the naval jackets, with the stripes around the sleeves. And I believe I might have been the first one to rock stuff like that back then. And then I'd go find the medals. I had the medals pinned on the jackets and all that stuff, man. Yeah, I was fully participating in the Colonel G role, man.
Well, people when they watch a movie like Beat Street and you see Africa Bambaataa, the way they had exotic costumes and like very detailed costumes was a big part of that era of the mid 80s of the early to mid 80s,
Yeah,
your costume set you apart kind of.
yeah, we strongly believed in marketing, right? And imagery, right? And the monogram jackets, I believe, was an Emerald Street Boy thing, because they were heavy in marketing too. Like they had baseball hats with ESB written across the top. You know, these gray jackets, flight bomber jackets with their names on them, and across the front. I
Yep.
think a lot of some of the pictures that you'll see with Creative Choice, we got our inspiration for the monogram jackets from ESB, of course.
That's my
And
next question. Yeah. My next question was like, if you want to talk about creative choice, like the transition from Freeze MCs to creative choice, do you want to talk about
well,
that for a second?
it was we done some stuff with the Freeze MCs, and then Mellow Mike popped back up into the picture, and he wanted to get down, he wanted to join or blend in with us, but we decided that we could go for a name change. We kind of broke from Chill a little bit there, and start basically doing it just the three MCs, right?
Mhm.
I know Easy Shot, DJ for us for a little bit, but as far as Black Festival performances, all we needed was just really the tape with the music on it, and get up there and do our thing. And so that was a big writing period for me too, because when you have a group of three, you have to determine where the material is going to come from, right? Although Daddy D was a great writer, Mike, we all could stand alone basically individually, and be solo artists if we chose to, right? And so we all had the ability to write. I'll just put it that way. And then so there was never any loss for creative ideas for songs and stuff like that. And we were really big on performing live too. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yep.
because I like to say that we had a pretty dynamic stage presence, and so we took advantage of that. And not every group had that, but I think back then, really, just to give all the MCs in Seattle credit, we all like to get on that stage, man. And that's one of the things that today, of course I missed a lot of that, because you get older and you grow out of that, and you just can't keep track of that. But there were always venues that we could have, or that were available to display what we could do. You know what I mean? And for me, after the whole creative choice thing kind of dissipated a little bit, I just started doing music on my own, started writing stuff, and really got close to a lot of deals and stuff like that. But it was a big growing time for me, because when you're by yourself, that's when you really learn if you're an artist or not.
Yep.
And I was able to make it to Canada and doing some performing, and I got into like movie extra work up in Canada. Just finding different ways, and then later on in the game, I became a radio personality in Seattle, at KRIZ 1420. So that was for a couple years there. So I was able to really kind of rely on myself to really produce some things.
I have a question about the song Streetwise. Were you involved in that song Streetwise at all, or was that something that came before or after you?
No, that was after me.
That was after you.
Yeah. That was Mellow Mike and Daddy D's strong streetwise. Yeah.
Okay. Which songs do you remember do you remember recording any songs with Freeze MCs?
Yeah, we did we went to the 24 track studio and did I think we did three songs there. One of them was called King of the Hill,
Okay.
where it starts out where I do a speech talking about the DJ. And then there was another song that was really like really fast paced that me and Daddy D did, or it was Daddy D on the lead, and I really just kind of more supported him like a DMC style.
Mm.
That was pretty long, and so yeah, we did another one called the Real New York Style, and I don't know why cats from Seattle would be saying anything like that, but it's kind of where we're influenced by a lot of East Coast material.
Yep.
So, we and we did that one on stage a few times, and we had one called Freak to the Beat, which I wrote, and then Toss It Up, but like what you got to understand back then is like early hip hop in Seattle is like a cat can write like three three rhymes, right? And you could say them three rhymes for 3 years. I mean, you could have one. I mean, when when you wrote a new rhyme, you were good. You were good. Look, you were good with that one for a minute, man. I mean, all you had to do was change the beat.
Yep.
There were no complete songs. We just had verses, and like we popped up at the what is it, KCMU, I think it was the UW station.
Mhm.
Ness was DJing there, or he was had a show, and Mix-a-Lot was there at the time that we were supposed to come in and do an interview, and we went there and Mix was there, and we did an interview, and then we did a live performance in the studio, and shit, I just used one of the raps that I had, man. We didn't believe in hooks, man. We was just busting.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Um, this is so cool to talk, man, because I love your new material too. I was just listening to that one about shake 'em up, roll the dice. I gotta move. I love
Yeah.
that jam, man. It
Yeah.
has like a real speed to it. It has like a momentum. So the question I have for you now, like you just mentioned, is Greg Nice retired, or are you still
Well,
do you still feel like an artist, or do you feel like retired artist?
Greg Nice is just a alias, right?
Yeah.
He was just an alias for the time that I wrote that. So, as everybody knows, there were years where I went through incarceration. You know what I mean? Like literally, I've been to prison 4 times, the total of 24 years. That's not including the county time, right? So when I first went to prison in '97, I still had the ability to rhyme and write. And so this was in my early 30s. I started writing again in prison. And so I think it was my third bid in 2006. I was at Monroe Prison Camp. Now I was in my 40s then when I did that song, Shake 'em Up.
Wow.
And I just went through a creative spurt, man, where I was right. Once I get the beat, I write the rap the same night and go in the studio. That Shake 'em Up song was written the day before I recorded it.
Really?
So at the time that was recorded, I had written that song the day before.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's what kind of creative spurt I was on. And so every time I go into prison, if there was a studio or something, I'd gravitate towards it. I can't tell you how many times that I've been able to perform at different events in prison, but what it did for me was it gave me a different, not only material to draw from my experience in the streets and stuff like that. I no longer had to rap about um, you know, um, I'm the grand supreme, that kind of stuff, right? I could really tell you how hardships are with experiencing it with all five senses, which made me a better writer. You know what I mean? Because now instead of fictionalizing what I was writing, I was actually writing about what I had experienced, right? And so this gave me a vast array of material to dip from if I chose to, right?
Sure.
But interestingly enough, when you go through stuff like that, it's not often that you often want to write about them, right? And relive that kind of stuff, nor do you want to, glorify any criminal uh, behavior and stuff like that, because what that does is that it has the ability to influence people in the wrong direction, right? And I didn't want to be known for that, you know what I mean? And so I changed up the things like writing a memoir and things like that, but I just got into other things like school, just like Daddy D got into school. We wasn't no dummies anyway, and so I just think that for me, prison gave me the ability to, pick up an associate's degree, and even today to continue with pursuing my bachelor's at Seattle Central, right?
Mhm.
And so, uh, would I do I have the ability to write and perform? Probably so. You know what I mean? Because I just think I'm a lifelong MC because we spent so many years hoping and praying to be the best at one of the best at what we did, right? And eventually all that stuff's gonna come to you, man. You no matter where I go, no matter what I do, I'm gonna always look like an MC. When I'm out in public, people ask me where I'm from, what I do, am I a performer? And you could just if you can't I wouldn't want you can't get away from it because it's something that you aspire to do for so long that even in conversations, people have told me that I sound like a record, right? And that's just because when you're on the radio, you're promoting, you learn to speak in a way that sounds like you're promoting something, right? And being an MC, your language is going to be kind of crafty anyway. So yeah.
Well, man, I was so happy to get that snapshot survived with you, Mellow Mike, and Daddy D for the cover. Man, that picture is just incredible. That
Yeah.
that showed up right in the corner, man. That's
Yeah,
just
so yeah.
I can't believe
Yeah, I was telling Mike about it. It's funny, man, because the last time I seen Mike, man, was probably about 3 years ago, and I ran into him and lost track of him. And right when you guys were asking about him, nobody knew where he was, right? And so I was catching the train underground, and I walked past this dude and I looked at him. I said, Mike, and he said, "What's up?" And that's how it's like always find this dude. I said, "Bro, we've been looking for you, man." So it was a blessing, man, to because out of all the opportunity, out of all the days and all the times and all the places,
wild.
I walked right past this dude. You know what I'm saying?
I got this
And
to shout out for him, man. I already got the he's already got a copy of his book right there, man. It's ready
yeah,
for him.
I told him about it. I said, "Bro, they've been trying to get a hold to your ass, man." He
That's
said,
his copy. This is his
"Yeah."
copy.
Yeah, yeah, he's looking forward to it, man. I'm serious. He's in a good space, man, and that's my brother, man. And I'm just glad that I was able to, God bless me with the ability to run into him like that, man. Get a hold to him.
Well, here's my theory, man. I'm doing this little series of just it's going to be limited series where it's like kind of just going to end with creative choice. But I hope that the people involved want to continue doing more interviews. I don't want to hold anything back. I mean, I want everybody to keep telling more details and more details about the story.
Right,
That's my
right.
dream. That's my hope.
I think also, man, what you could do once we get to where we stop running out of things to say, you could also use the same panel of people to really analyze and assess the things that are going on in hip hop today,
Yeah.
and how they have how 'cause I just got a message from Mike, so he said I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
so just really just I wouldn't mind participating in a podcast or something where we really break down, some of the stuff that we're hearing, some of our opinions on some of the latest stuff, and just even the local talents in Seattle, getting them immersed into this so we can be some type of support system to the new cats. Like when we were young cats in the game, wishing we had an opportunity for some old heads to really, support us and give us some good support. So we'll be available for that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, like you said, your place as a role model is really important, man. And I like that. That's
Yeah,
cool because you're very aware of the messages that you put out can help inspire the next person to do their thing. And I love
right.
that chain reaction vibe is cool,
Yeah.
man. I appreciate that.
No doubt, no doubt.
Well, man, Colonel, let's talk soon. I'll probably click out of here in just a second, but I'm sorry Daddy D couldn't make it. He sends his thoughts, but he had to run with an emergency that happened. Not he's okay, but there was just a kind of a family situation that happened. So, yeah. But basically, Colonel, man, good to talk to you today.
Yeah, good to see you, man. Thanks for letting me share. Appreciate you.
All right, we're gonna talk real soon.
All right, peace.
Have a good one out there.